Today for you, 5 things every fantasy and science fiction fan should know. If you don't know these things, your life is not as full as it could be. I hope to change that. Welcome to Fantasy for the Ages. I'm Jim, the father of this show. My son Zach is not here with me today. I'm here with you, as promised, to share 5 things. If you don't know these things, man, I hope to change your life. Number 1. Malazan Book of the Fallen by Stephen Erickson is worth every effort that it takes to read. I am not kidding. Don't believe the naysayers that it's too hard to understand. You can't get into it. It's way too complicated. Baloney! It's brilliantly written, masterful prose, and plot lines that are just freaking incredible. It will take you a chunk of time to get through this series. But trust me, it is worth it. These 10 core books of Malazan. I'm not done. I'm on the final book, which is really book 9 and 10. They go right together. It's one book, too big to publish as one book. But I'm far enough into it to see all these things falling together now. And I'm like, this is incredible. One of the most amazing reading experiences I've had, and I want you to have it. And in the end, when you are done, I can already sense this. Even though I've spent well over a year reading this book, now I haven't gone, one after another. I've put things in between, but it's taken a lot of time to read these 10 books. I'm still going to be sad when it's done. My life will have a gap because they have been so rich, so fun. The characters that I've met, the plot lines that are so amazingly written, and so many pieces that are interrelated, and it's all coming to fruition. Now I'm going to regret when it's gone, which is why a lot of people reread Malazan Book of the Fallen. Number 2, using a TBR list is a super valuable tool. There's so much science fiction and fantasy available now, both classic things and new stuff that's coming out all the time. How in the world do you keep track of all the things that you want to read? How do you, not lose that recommendation someone gave you, that book you saw in the bookstore, that email that came through, and I'm like, oh, that looks fascinating. And then how do you choose to spend your time on the best books, the right books, when it's time to pick something new? How do you know which one is for you? This is where a TBR, a to be read list, is a lifesaver. It takes off so much pressure. You hear of something new that you'd like to read, you just put it on the list. I have my list available in mobile, so I can just go right on my phone and drop it in. If you use a spreadsheet, like nerdy people like me do, it's such a brilliant tool because you can have tons of books on this list and move them around. Move things higher on the list when you feel like reading them. Move them down farther if you think you'll read them eventually, but it's not what you feel like right now. Shuffle things around. You get a new book, you want to put it on the list, it doesn't have to go on the end. You can insert it anywhere in the spread list you feel like. I have about 1,400 books sitting on my list right now. It never seems to get shorter because as I read things and they come off the list, I've been adding new things to take their place. But having a TBR, which I have used regularly now for over 3 years, changed my reading experience, removed any stress about picking the wrong book when it's time to read something new. And I never lose track of the books that I hear about that I want to read someday. So I really recommend, however you want to do it, dabble with a TBR, and you'll probably be thankful. Number 3, if you have not read The Expanse yet, what the heck are you waiting for? It is one of the best written, most engaging, and entertaining science fiction series that I've ever read. 9 books, plus some short stories and novellas that go along, and it is complete. It's done. It's packaged and tied with a bow, ready for you. It leans into the science in some really positive ways. For example, actually paying attention and incorporating it into the narrative, what living in space would do to the human body, what flying through space in a ship would do to a human body and how you have to adapt for that. Let's forget about having fake gravity just exist on a ship. Star Trek, anyone? Star Wars, anyone? I mean, those shows don't try to pay attention to the science. The Expanse does, and yet doesn't make it dull, makes it better. And of course, it's got rich politics, scheming, aliens, alien technology, warfare, human greed, human sacrifice. Not the kind where they're torturing and killing people. No, humans sacrificing for others. There's so much to this story, guys, and it's brilliant and wonderful. There's also a great TV adaptation that you can still access on Prime Video that covers the first 6 books. But 7, 8, and 9 is some of the most powerful parts of the story. So get to The Expanse, read the 9 books, maybe read the novellas and short stories. I've read them all. I think it's even better with them, but you don't have to. Some people only read the 9 and they really, really love it. The Expanse. Stop wasting time. Go read it. Number 4, audiobooks, man. They are incredible. If you haven't tried an audiobook yet, I hope you'll do so soon. They've been a literal life changer for me. I read so much more now that I'm using audiobooks, in addition to reading physical books and reading books on my Kindle app, which is my preferred way. But audiobooks, when I'm driving somewhere, I'm listening to a book. When I'm exercising, I'm listening to a book. I listen to my book while I'm doing chores around the house. Everything gets more interesting because I always have a book to be listening to. Now, not every book is ideal for audiobooks. I wouldn't try Malazan Book of the Fallen by audiobook, but I might try a reread of it. I'm about to start a reread of Brandon Sanderson's The Stormlight Archive books. I'm going to do it by audiobook. I would not have wanted to do that the first time that way, but a reread's going to work great. But a lot of other books, I'd say most books, have worked great on audio. And hey, are you impatient? Do people tell you you don't have the time for stuff? Heck, you don't have the time for reading? You can speed audiobooks up. You can get through them faster. My son Zach does this all the time. I don't think he listens to any book at its regular speed. The audio apps make it very simple to speed books up. The words don't sound like chipmunks are reading to you. It works pretty well. They just talk faster. The technology's great. I usually don't do it that way. I like the way they design the audiobook, but on occasion, I've done it, and it works really well. Audiobooks, check them out. Don't assume they're not for you, because they probably are. And finally, number 5 here, my last thing everyone who loves fantasy and science fiction should know is a cheat. I'm going to give you a quick recommendation for fantastic series to read in a few different fantasy and sci-fi subgenres, in case you haven't read them yet. I'm just going to share them. I'm not going to tell you anything about them. If you haven't read them, go check them out. Epic Fantasy, The Wheel of Time by Robert Jordan. Check it out. Number 2, classic high fantasy, the Shannara series by Terry Brooks. Over 30 books waiting for you. Brilliant. Number 3, urban fantasy, The Dresden Files by Jim Butcher defines urban fantasy. Number 4, grimdark fantasy, First Law by Joe Abercrombie. Oh my goodness, these books are great. Number 5, sci-fi fantasy, something that kind of bridges the gap between the two. The best example is The Dragon Riders of Pern by Anne McCaffrey. Number 6, romantasy, which I am not into, but Zach is reading quite a bit, so I'm pulling his recommendation to give you A Court of Thorn and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. He really enjoyed it. Number 7, most exciting, soon-to-be-finished sci-fi series, Red Rising by Pierce Brown. There's 6 books waiting for you to read. They go really fast. And book 7 is supposed to come out next year. That's what we're pretty much expecting, 2025. I really enjoyed Red Rising. It was intense. And number 8, my final one, in case you want to drive yourself a little crazy like the rest of us are now, here's my best unfinished and possibly never to be finished fantasy trilogy. The Kingkiller Chronicle by Patrick Rothfuss. Read it. You'll love it. And then you'll hate me. Thanks for watching, everyone. We'll talk to you next time.